Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another Investors Performance Group live stream. I'm your host tonight, Cameron Manning. For those of you guys who know us regularly, we host these meetings every single month in a way to try to impact you and help you guys build your portfolios, build your wealth in real estate. And I'm excited to have you guys here. As you guys are jumping into the live stream, if you guys are already on, do me a favor. We want to be as participatory as possible. So drop in the chat where you guys are tuning in from. You might see a friend in the chat, and this is a great way that you can make more connections, but also lets us know where you're tuning in from. Also, while we are doing this live stream, we love to have a lot of participation. So make sure you guys ask as many questions as you can. We're going to be going through a few different topics today and would love to have your participation. And lastly, if you are new here and this is your first time watching, do me a favor. If that little subscribe button is still showing as red, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Help us grow this channel and impact more investors out there, more people grow their wealth. Without further ado, let's kick it off. Susan, welcome from Maple Ridge. Derek from Langley. All right, here we go, folks. So we are the Investors Performance Group. So again, thank you guys for to you by the Kelly Fry team. Now, for those who don't know the Kelly Fry team, we're a full service real estate investment team. Our goal is to help you build your wealth, and we have all the resources that you guys need to be successful, whether you're looking for accountants and lawyers to help with your corporate structures, great contractors if you're fixing and flipping, if you're looking to do an inspection or you're looking for staging advice, whatever you need, we have got it for you. And we bring you great speakers every single month to help impact you as investors, like our keynote today. I'm really excited for, and I know you guys will be excited for as well. All right, so our agenda tonight is going to be a typical market deep dive. Every single month, we like to look at the numbers so you can make the informed decisions for your portfolio of what is happening out in the market. And I've said it before, and I'll always say it, there's no such thing as a Canadian real estate market. And you'll really see the difference when we go into these deep dives in the different areas because the numbers are quite wild this month. Then we're going to do a quick BC budget breakdown. Obviously, the budget just came out 2 days ago and it's wild right now. And there's a lot around the real estate side of things that's going to impact you as investors and or just in general as homeowners. Then, of course, we've got our keynote speaker tonight, which is going to be Ralph Case and his concept of one more house. If you can just get one more house, what kind of an impact is that going to make on your financial future? I'm excited to watch this, and I'm sure you guys are too. Then we got a couple hot deals, and then we'll let you out for the night. So again, if you guys are tuning in now, make sure you drop where you guys are tuning in from. Let's keep it really engaged in the chat there. All right, here we go. And of course, we do love some engagement. So if you guys are enjoying tonight and you got a lot of ahas, take a screenshot, feel free to take a photo of Ralph or I as we're smiling away at you and post it to your social media. You can tag our team at Kelly Fry on Instagram and on Facebook. Now, one of the things before we really kick off, I gave this content starter pack away at a recent event, and I want to give it to you guys as well. At the end of the day, if you guys really want to grow as investors, eventually you're going to need to start raising capital. Now, there's no better way to start raising capital than becoming an authority figure in your area. And to do that, social media has become one of the greatest tools when it comes to getting yourself out there. I use it as both a realtor and an investor to try to build a community of people who will hopefully trust me and want to hire me. And with this pack, I give you nearly 30 pages of step-by-step guides on how you can start creating content on social media, step-by-step guides on how you can edit videos, some gear that you guys can use, as well as some AI tricks to help you be more efficient in coming up with ideas, including 100 investor-focused hooks. That is 100 different pieces of content that you could create just with these hooks that I've given you. So again, I gave this away on Debbie Balfour's lifestyle investor giveaway, and I'm giving it to you guys. Scan that. You can register, get the entire pack. As well, if you guys are wanting to take social media seriously, included with it is a 15-minute social media audit where we are going to help you really focus on what you need to do with your social profiles in order to attract more capital. So go ahead and scan that. It will come up later again. That's just a free giveaway. I started giving it away to other people. I wanted to give it away to you. All right, let's talk about the market. What is happening out there? And I can tell you from an agent's perspective, it is an interesting market out there. We are seeing some really ebbs and flows in different areas, different markets, some pockets moving, some pockets extremely slow. And the numbers tonight are going to be kind of all over the map. And that really dives into that concept that there's no such thing as a Canadian real estate market. There are so many submarkets on submarkets on submarkets, and we're going to dive into it tonight. So, quick note from both the president of GVR, which is the Greater Vancouver Realtors, and the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board. Last year's market trends continue in January as home sales registered on the MLS in Metro Vancouver were 28.5% lower than last year, setting the year off to a quiet start. So we definitely have seen that it is quite quieter out there. There's not a lot of sales happening, but we are seeing some movement on the inventory side, and we're going to show you guys what that's looking like. And then according to the Fraser Valley, now this is where we start reading between the lines. Fraser Valley home prices back to pre-pandemic or pandemic era levels under weight of economic headwinds and sustained inventory. When I hear that as an investor, that means prices are down and there's opportunities to buy. So we're going to talk about that a little bit as well. So let's kick it off here. We're going to look at the three major markets here. So you've got Greater Vancouver, you've got Fraser Valley, and of course, you've got Chilliwack District. And as you can see, we saw the inventory starting to come down. You know, if you take a look, this area here was when we capped out in December. Already, we are heading into that spring market. GVR is rising in inventory over 12,500. You see over 4,700 in the Fraser Valley, and even in Chilliwack, you know, Chilliwack stays pretty steady Eddie. However, it's probably going to start to show a little bit of an incline. So if you guys are thinking about selling, if you do have that property that you really need to offload, my recommendation is get that property on the market before that inventory rises too high. As soon as you get into that spring market and you're competing with 15,000 other listings, it really becomes that buyer's opportunity at that point. The myth is that people wait till spring to sell their home. It's actually a good opportunity for you to buy in the spring market, not necessarily sell. So taking a look at the sales, though, and this is where we talked about it, especially in January, record low sales. Okay, 1,100 sales compared to 12,000 listings. You can see here also there was 4,700 listings in Fraser Valley, only 578 actual sold listings, and then 115. So we are seeing that level of sales is staying relatively low. When we have a sustained period of time with low sales and high inventory, we continue to see pressure on the housing market. Again, creating opportunities for those buyers who are positioned and ready to be able to purchase a home. So when I read this, when I look at this, I see opportunity. And that's what we got to start looking at, not fearing the headlines in the real estate market out there. When you look at what's going on in the news, we got to look at where those pockets of opportunity start coming up and getting ourselves ready for it. Now, the average sales price, surprisingly, in Greater Vancouver actually saw a little bit of a tick up. But again, this all depends on what type of product sold. Fraser Valley did take a dive over last month, and Chilliwack's actually still been pretty steady. It's actually showing a little bit of resilience in the market comparatively over last year. So just gives you an idea of the price. And then one of the key metrics we've been looking at quite a bit recently is that sales to active ratio. Now, as it sits right now, if you have a sales to active ratio at 12 or below, that puts us in a buyer's market. And if we sustain that for a long period of time, that's when we really see prices start to take that dive. As you can see here, Chilliwack District, I did say it's been holding a little bit more steady. It is closer to that balanced market at 11.1%. Comparatively to the 8.8 and 8.6% of Greater Vancouver and Fraser Valley. So they are pushing deeper and deeper into that buyer's market territory. And that's where negotiation opportunities really come up. And also one of the metrics that we watch for is the sales price ratio to list. And as we can see here, properties are averaging around that 95% of list price, meaning people are knocking off around 5%. Now, you got to take this stat with a grain of salt. And the reason why I say take it with a grain of salt is because that stat there is on the final sales price. What we are seeing in the market a lot is properties that are being priced high. They're sitting on the market for a long time. Their days on market are going up. Sometimes those agents are taking it off the market, repricing it, and then eventually it sells. So this doesn't take into effect those massive drops that we see with those what we call cancel relists. However, if you are buying a property and you're paying close to list, you're kind of, not really doing well comparative to the market. This shows you have some room to actually negotiate with sellers right now, something we didn't have back during the pandemic, of course. All right. Now we're going to go and take a look a little deeper into the markets. And this is where I say it gets a little crazy because one minute we're saying that the market is slow, the market is down, but you're going to see some pockets where the numbers are actually positive. And this is why it is important that if you are analyzing a property, you are looking into the micro stats of that area to see what kind of a deal you're getting. And it all boils down to fundamentals at the end of the day. Now we'll start out east, we'll move our way west, and we can see here in Chilliwack, prices have actually rebounded very slightly out in the market at up 2.6% comparative to what we saw last year. We can see, though, it is taking a little bit longer to sell those properties, about 48 days, up 23.1%. But the inventory has actually dropped in this category by 5.7%. So a little bit less inventory for buyers to choose from compared to last year. However, townhouses and condos, they took it on the chin a little bit out there. Comparative to last year, they're down 21.4% and 25% respectively. We can see, though, average time on market is down to 41 days, so it's actually dropped by 35%, whereas 97, it's almost 3 months on average now to sell a condo in Chilliwack. So if you have a property in Chilliwack that you're planning on selling, a condo specifically, pricing aggressively is going to be key for you to not be in that 30 days. And of course, the longer your days on market, the lower your price tends to get because days on market is the enemy of your home's value. Now we can see here the inventory is up as well. 83 townhouses on the market. It's up 43% and up 14% in the condos. Attached, not doing as well. Detached, holding pretty firm. And that comes down to that affordability. Chilliwack is still fairly affordable compared to most areas. Taking a look at Abbotsford, still detached has held firm, down a very slight negative 0.4%. So not too bad over last year. It's pretty steady there. We've seen days on market drop and inventories also dropped in the detached. It's the attached market that is feeling the pressure, especially in the condos again, down 18.1%. Inventory rising overall. Townhouses selling a little faster than it was last year, but condos taking almost 2 months to sell on average in Abbotsford. Okay, moving up to Mission, going north of Abbotsford there, we can see the detached again fared okay, up 3.6% to an average still of 1.269 million, whereas the condos and townhouses also took that. We're seeing a common thread out in the valley right now where condos are taking a bit of that hit right now and detached have been kind of holding firm. So that's why we've seen the prices not necessarily as an average of the industry showing too much drop because you have one market that's more expensive propping it up while the lower markets are dropping a bit. Again, you can see listings, although in Mission, we've seen much less listings in the past. We've seen some new development happening out there. They're up to 33 listings in a month right now on the market. Again, 4 years ago, we'd be lucky to get 3 on the market. So there's been a lot of densification happening in that market. And townhouses are up almost 30% with 48 there. Now, Langley, I'm going to break Langley up into a couple just to show you some differences of the Langley market because Langley is quite a large area, right? You've got Willowbrook, Willoughby, you've got Langley City. Overall, Langley detached, and that's because it's a more expensive market. They've taken a bigger hit, down 12.2% year over year on the value. Listings have stayed fairly stable, still 555, down very slightly, but days on market, it's about 2 months right now to sell a detached house. And that's an average. Some are taking longer, depends on your pricing. Townhouses took it at a 7.7 loss and 8.7 for condos. Inventory is up, days on market is up. But here's where it gets interesting. This is where we start to look at those pockets to see where things are still moving, things are stable, while the average across the entirety of Langley is down 12.2%. That means some pockets are likely dragging it further down. You can see if we go into Langley City as an example, Langley City actually showed more resilience in the detached market, up 10.5% over last year compared to the average down 12.2%. So it's super interesting when you start going into those micro markets to see where things are changing. So to me, if you've got one sub market up, but you've got other sub markets, like the averages across the whole market is down 12.2, that means some markets are actually, or some detached homes out there are selling for significantly below their value, which is driving that price down as an average across the norm. Whereas this one micro market is showing some resilience. You can see though, townhouses are slightly higher in the loss compared to the average of the market in general in Langley. And condos fared a little bit better in Langley City than the average overall. Areas like Willoughby, because there's so much development that happened in that area, those condos have gone down even significantly higher. And that's where we start to really analyze, really working with that investment focused agent who can look in all these different little markets to find those opportunities where it makes sense. To me, if an area is still showing growth, sellers might not be as negotiable in those areas because they're also seeing their neighbors sell faster. They're seeing their neighbors get closer to list. You want to look for those pockets where the numbers make sense and you can negotiate a little harder. Also down further. So there's less homes on the market in Langley City right now. In the detached, townhouses down slightly, but they have risen in the Langley City area to 169. It's up 26%. Okay, jumping north again to Maple Ridge. We've seen a bit of a hit in the Maple Ridge area, down 9% as a detached average overall. Listings are down slightly. Days on market have dropped a bit. Townhouses, though, down nearly 20%. So we have seen a massive drop in the townhouse market there, and condos down 7.8%. Although the inventory has dropped almost by a quarter in the condo market there. So some things to watch for if that continues, but we are heading into that spring market. So I anticipate that number to change. Pulling out a micro market in Vancouver to show a difference here, you can see if we look at West Central as an example, the property values actually went up in the detached by 15.9%. So again, certain pockets are still stable and it's just due to the product type there, how many are for sale. You can see 15% decrease in the listings in that area, which is likely causing that specific submarket to actually weather the storm because there's not as much inventory, at least good inventory that's selling that buyers are looking at, right? So comparative to the whole market where there's 463 units for sale in the whole of Maple Ridge. Whereas townhouses kind of in line, as you can see, down 20%, and condos were a little bit hit harder by down 10.8% in that area, although inventory did show a reduction overall as well there. Going over to North Surrey, we can see detached is down 8.2%. Townhouses took a little heavier hit at down 13.6, and condos down 9.7%. However, inventory had dropped on detached as well as condos. This area is interesting with condos though, because there's been a lot of development. And sometimes what happens is we see a drop in inventory as a project finishes and all those assignments that were on the market start coming off as well. So sometimes those numbers can be a little skewed depending on the product type that is hitting. Is it resale or is it assignment? So keep an eye on that, and a good agent will be able to help you navigate that. Surrey overall, pulling out of North Surrey, we can see they've had a big drop in Surrey. And actually, our colleague Kelly has been on the market a lot recently in the Surrey, and she can tell you that the prices have been like every time she does showings, we're getting notification after notification from agents of price reductions. So Surrey is definitely feeling the pressure right now with the inventory increases, the overall inventory and the lack of sales for sure. And that's why we're seeing that down 28.3%. We did show a property last month in Surrey that actually cash flowed. I haven't seen Surrey cash flowing on detached in a long time. Now, that one did have 3 suites, though. We've seen townhouses take a hit, condos a little steadier in this specific area, and inventory hasn't changed too much. Over to Coquitlam, down about 1.9%. So it's held its own in this area. Inventory has risen. It's about 52 days to sell right now. The townhouse market also not too bad, down 1.6%. However, inventory has gone up by 9.1, and it's taking a little longer to sell those. And condos definitely felt the pinch out there, down 13.3%. Inventory rose quite a bit in the condo market in Coquitlam, up 21.8%. There has been several buildings that are for sale out there. There's a lot of towers. However, a lot of them are restricting assignments. So I think a huge portion of this is likely the resale market as well. Over to Poco, down 9% for the detached, 9.5 in townhouses, and condos actually saw a little bit of a gain, 1.1% overall. However, inventory is up quite a bit in the condos as well. I mean, for townhouses, it's a shocking 137% increase, but it's only 57 on the market. And we actually saw a reduction in the inventory in the last over last year in January, comparatively in detached. New West down to 2.6, townhouses 12.7, condos 15.5%, up in inventory, up in days on market, except for the detached. Still only takes about a month to sell a good, well priced detached home. And then the Burnaby North area, we've got down 4.1% in the detached, still $2.288 million for a detached home in that area. Although inventory has risen up 52%, and it's 78 days. So it is it's getting closer to about 2.5 months right now to sell a house out there. Up on the townhouse and down on condos. All right, and then finally, Vancouver East, we're down 10.1% year over year on the detached home values. Inventory has climbed just a little bit. It's taken a little longer to sell homes there. So they took a little bit of a bigger hit. And of course, it does come down to a bit of an affordability factor. What we have kind of seen with this is those markets that have more expensive detached homes, they took a little bit of that bigger hit. The areas like Abbotsford and Mission and Chilliwack, where the detached is a little more affordable, they have held a little bit more steady throughout it. The condos and the townhouse markets, though, across most of the areas, they definitely felt the hit. And a big part of that is because there was a lot of people who bought, Langley had massive development, Surrey had massive development, Abbotsford had a decent number. All these areas that had a lot of new construction, as those ones have come on the market, people are trying to liquidate those. And government policies have also pushed a lot of people to try to put those on the market. And that's what's driving the inventory up and then prices down. So again, there's opportunities across all these different market segments if you know where to look and what to look for, and you have the right fundamentals in place. And I know our keynote tonight probably going to touch a little bit on that fundamentals and how to start looking from the perspective of building that portfolio at a stable pace. All right. Again, if you found that valuable, make sure you post your biggest ahas and tag the Kelly Fry team, or tag me as well at Cameron E. Manning on Facebook and Instagram. I'd love to see what you guys are pulling away as your biggest ahas in the market today. All right, now we're going to go through the BC budget breakdown. Now, this came out 2 days ago, and let's just say that our phenomenal, and I say that sarcastically, government, including our finance minister, actually went on record at the Vancouver Board of Trade and said that she's going to be the least popular person when this comes out. And let's just say the backlash that I am seeing online right now from this budget is warranted. We're going to go through what it's going to mean in terms of the different changes, what impacts it likely is going to have on the markets, and some things just that you guys got to probably consider when thinking about your portfolio as well. Now, some of it's going to impact you as current investors in your property values. Other ones could create opportunities for you as buyers in the market. So take the information as you will based on where you're at in your investing journey. So the first change is to the speculation and vacancy tax. We are increasing the foreign and untaxed owners tax rate from 3 to 4% by 2027. So again, they're really pushing this agenda of trying to make sure that we don't have empty homes, which I don't necessarily disagree with. I mean, we should definitely have homes for people using homes. However, what it's going to end up doing is it's either going to encourage renting. In my opinion, it's probably going to encourage more selling of these vacant homes. And when you have more of that hitting the market, more of that inventory, and it's probably going to be a lot inventory rise and we have more inventory versus sales, we'll continue to see some of that downward pressure. So this is likely going to have that impact that we're going to see prices continue to drop as some of these foreign owners don't want to keep taking this tax hit. This does nothing, of course, to increase buyer qualification either. Also, some of the concerns that have come up, especially from BCREA, they put a statement out today. This added supply with already weak sales condition, it doesn't address the affordability. It just discourages ownership in general. Now, of course, there's the new luxury home tax, aka they're calling it the additional school tax. So if you own a property that's worth 3 million to 4 million, the tax is going up from 0.2% to 0.3%. And if you have a $4 million plus home, it's going from 0.4 to 0.6%. Now, this is obviously going to be a significant financial impact for those with property values like that. And again, the interesting thing, in my opinion, with this tax is it's not necessarily targeting people who are wealthy unless you've gone and bought a $4 million home. Some people out there are just lucky in the fact that, well, I wouldn't say lucky, they just bought their home and they're lucky from, I guess, the market going up, and they're sitting on these assets now worth a significant amount of money. And it's not because they're multimillionaires, it's because they bought when it was very, very cheap and they've lived there for 60 years. Now, this is going to directly impact them. It's going to cause higher holding costs. Obviously, your property taxes are going up, and in some cases, significantly. It's gonna they're basically trying to say we want to create early downsizing decisions, right? If it's getting too expensive, let's try to get you to downsize. And maybe that housing can be used to densify in certain pockets and create more affordable housing. And it's going to gradually increase listings over time. So again, we're pushing inventory into the market, which will then eventually drive prices down. So this is essentially penalizing long-term ownership rather than speculation. This doesn't really do anything for those people that they are speculating, right? And it is going to create earlier selling, but not necessarily forced selling. Just some people might be selling earlier than they originally anticipated. Now, this is another one that I don't really understand, but the property tax deferment cost increase. They're now going to be increasing the interest rate charged to prime plus 2% compounded. So this is going to impact our senior citizens out there, those who are deferring their property taxes. So this is essentially they're trying to say, why don't these senior citizens start selling their properties and downsizing earlier? Again, it's that same thing. Properties are going to come to the market sooner, and it's going to add more resale inventory. The theme continues of adding that resale inventory. And again, all that's going to do is drive prices down if we don't have the sales to sustain the absorption of that inventory. This is an interesting one that's not going to help a lot of professionals out there, but PST added to commercial real estate services. Now they're adding PST to several different services out there. And the problem is that this directly is going to impact the whole case of affordable housing, trying to develop and create more housing inventory. Because now, commercial fees, like if I do anything in the commercial realm, which our team does do commercial, we'll have to add PST onto our services, not just GST. This is going to have problems with some leasing companies in the commercial space, professional consulting such as accountants or lawyers. So you're essentially raising the soft costs for a lot of developers out there who rely on all these services. What ends up happening is either it's going to discourage some of them from building because their soft costs are going to outweigh, or those fees or those extra costs are pushed down onto end user buyers, which really doesn't help with the affordability factor. Friction in the transaction by increasing fees. All of this going to the government. Now, income tax changes. This was an interesting one to see. It's the first, they're increasing the first provincial tax bracket by it was 5.06 to 5.6. So they're increasing it by just under 0.6 percentage, which is interesting because we've seen inflation go crazy, everything getting more expensive. And now we're going to tax the lowest tax bracket a little bit more as well. So it's going to reduce people's monthly disposable income. It's going to also slightly lower borrowing capacity, especially for those entry level or move up buyers that are trying to save money, trying to get to that point where they can maybe enter the market, but they aren't in the highest tax brackets. Already very, very hard for them to save money. This is going to make it a little bit harder. So again, Yeah, PST, Susan. Yeah, that's what I said. So PST is being added to all services. In terms of the real estate, it's on the commercial real estate. We haven't gotten clarity yet on the residential side yet. So far, we think that one might still just be GST. We're waiting for clarification from our industry on that one. So the industry's response is that these tax increases are basically just going to continue to discourage transactions. While we have more inventory and less sales, that pressure is going to continue to drive prices down, adding supply without actually improving real affordability and rising costs of doing business. And again, that's that commercial PST. So it's again more higher holding costs, higher transaction friction, more listings, lower liquidity. That's going to impact all of us. For if we do need to eventually sell, we'll have less liquidity, and we're going to have to get very aggressive on our pricing. Gradual supply increase. It might create more stable rental demand. However, I do anticipate that that will likely drive rents down as well. CPA services, I do believe so, Susan. It will be affecting CPAs as well. It's gonna their goal is to reduce speculation, obviously, and then slower price cycles, which we've already been in a very slow price cycle already. So that is it right there. Now, I did talk a little bit about this on my podcast just a few days before the budget came out. So go and check that one out. Manning Up on Real Estate over on YouTube or Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to podcasts. And what I basically talked about is that the government is alienating one of their largest revenue sources. If you think about it, property transfer tax is one of the biggest revenue sources that they can drive, and that comes through transactions. However, it seems like the government is focusing more on the optics because they know if they try to drive anything more towards transaction volume to try to generate revenue for them while they're in this massive deficit, massive losses in terms of the debt that they're in, it's going to spike the market. And if they spike the market, suddenly they'll be going into the next cycle with that scarlet letter that suddenly they didn't fix the housing affordability. And they fear, and at least this is a speculation, that that could cost them the next election. So right now, this budget is really focused on how can we increase taxes, cut services. This doesn't even go into, like, obviously there's 15,000 jobs they're cutting. There's a lot of other cuts in different sectors that they're going to be doing. Their goal here is taxes and cuts in order to address the increased or what's not budget, but the increased debts that they're incurring, trying to stem that a little bit because obviously the interest on this debt is going to start compounding massively. Doesn't seem like this is going to be the solution though, but instead it's at least they can blame the economy. They can blame a lot of other factors versus being blamed for housing going back up. Talk about that on my podcast. Go and check that one out if you guys want to. It's about a 5-minute listen. I kept it short and sweet. And again, that's going to be over on Manning Up on Real Estate on YouTube, or of course on Spotify or Apple or wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right. Moving on from the budget now, we are going to bring in our keynote speaker today, who is Mr. Ralph Case. Ralph has been a real estate investor, educator, and speaker with over 40 years of experience helping others build their wealth. He's directly impacted both Kelly and I through being the past president of the Real Estate Action Group, and he's the president of Duroc Case Investments Realty. He's bought and sold over 3,000 plus multifamily units, and he's known for his practical step-by-step strategies. He's the co-author of Real Estate Action 2.0, and the best-selling book Trendsetters, and also just launched his new book called One More House. So we're going to bring Ralph up onto the stage here. Ralph, welcome to the Investors Performance Group. It's been a while. How you been?
I've been very well, Cam, until I heard all your depressing news about taxes. So
I know, right?
I'm here to cheer everybody up.
I appreciate that. And at the end of the day, it's one of those things that as investors, we need to be aware of. We need to know how to navigate so we can still build wealth through the strategies that you're going to be teaching today, right?
Yeah. And I think we have to keep the eye on the prize. And my feeling is it's a long-term strategy. It's not a short-term quick gain. This is a very dangerous market for flippers, obviously, because we don't know where the market's going to go. But I can tell you with 100% assurance that if you look 5 or 10 years down the road, we're going to be fine, because governments that just totally want to suck all the blood out of us, sooner or later they get voted out. Because sure, we've got affordability, but nobody's got a job. So, hey, wait a second. I'd rather have expensive houses and get a salary increase every year. And come on, we need growth. We need investment. We need transactions. It's just common sense, this thing about the deferred property tax. All these old people were given this carrot, for 2.5% or 3% interest. They can not worry about having to move from their family home. And so they've racked up debt of, say 100,000, 150,000 is not uncommon. And now the government, it's like bait and switch. That money now gets charged prime plus 2. So, they were paying 3%. It's going to go to 6 or 7%. These poor old people, it's criminal, I think. It's just unbelievable that they would have the audacity to do that. Like, even maybe make it on the new deferred tax, but they've already made the deal with them on the past deferred tax. Anyways, don't get me going.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll keep that one for another episode of something, but
exactly. Ralph venting. What's he going to vent on this week? Anyways,
there we go. All right.
Well, I'm
going to bring up your slides and I'm going to let you take it away.
Okay. So, hello, everybody. For those of you that haven't heard me speak before, welcome. My name's Ralph Case. I've trained over 5,000 active real estate investors. I've bought and sold over 3,000 residential units, either personally or with joint venture partners. And most fun of all is co-authoring books. So this picture of me here on the screen is accepting the Golden Quill Award for a bestseller called Trendsetters. And then with my business partner, Ozzy Jurok, I co-authored Real Estate Action and Real Estate Action 2.0. And then most recently with co-author Rick Hugendorn, I have co-authored One More House. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So after I got out of my tuxedo, I put on my t-shirt again and grabbed a beer and a lime. And this is me in Mexico. This is more the natural Ralph. I don't dress up in tuxedos very much anymore. And that's because I started buying properties at fairly young age, but it wasn't a steady trajectory. So the first 14 years since graduating from university, I bought and sold 11 houses and 3 condos. That was between 1981 and 1995. And then 0 houses for the next 7 years. So I just kind of loaded up the pump and then waited because, had 3 kids, busy family, busy realtor, just life got busy. So I didn't have much activity for 7 years between 1996 and 2003. And coincidentally, those were kind of slow years. Like when I was buying, the market was going up, but then it kind of flattened out in British Columbia in the late 1990s. And then it started to pick up again. And I started doing strata flips. So I did over 1,500 units, again, with myself or joint venture partners between 2004 and 2011. That was about 7 years. And then I smartened up. I said, rather than flipping these stratas, like buying an apartment building that had individual units and selling them off individually, like buying in bulk and then selling off individually, I said, what if you held the buildings? So I started going buy and hold, where you buy a building and you do what's called forced appreciation, where you increase the income, you increase the net operating income, and the value goes up 200 to 1. For every dollar of rent you increase in your net operating income, the value of the building goes up $200. And that's a real fantastic way to build wealth, but it's harder and harder because you got to find areas where the cap rate makes sense, that you're having positive cash flow and you've got that ability to do the forced appreciation. So the last 6 years, again, more units of buy and hold more than sell. So now I'm pretty much retired. I'm living off the income of the properties. This is my co-author, Rick, with his Star Trek impersonation or Star Wars impersonation. But he and I are a great pair in terms of our investment philosophies. He started out as a financial planner until about the early 1990s. So he comes up from the perspective of, he used to sell mutual funds. And then he just had this aha that real estate makes way more sense. And so he and Sherry, starting in 1997, they began investing in real estate and built a substantial portfolio of properties in Western Canada. And in 2014, they were presented with the opportunity to become developers and went on to build purpose-built rental buildings of 20, 30, and 63 units. And they recently have switched their focus to land assemblies. So he has a ton of experience. I have a ton of experience, and it's sort of complementary. It's kind of fun. And he's also authored a couple of books, which you may have or may not have read. What's Stopping You? And the other one is 18 Holes to Your Goals. Excellent books if you're having trouble getting going. Rick is he's a taskmaster, and I salute him and I credit him with us getting this book done. And I think you'll enjoy it if you get a chance to read it. So tonight, my talk is about freedom and just looking at, our retirement. What's it going to look like? And it's probably, maybe 10 years, maybe 40 years down the road. But the amazing thing that people don't realize about a house is if you're starting with $100,000 for your retirement plan, with an RSP, you're going to make, maybe 10%, 6% return, whatever. But with a rental property, that $100,000 will be 20% down on a $500,000 purchase. So you're already leveraged incredibly. And if you get 6% on 500,000, that's $30,000 profit versus 6% on 100,000 is 6,000. So you think of that difference every year, year after year, over 20 years. It's explosive, and most people don't do it because they think that it's risky or it's scary or it's dangerous. And so that's what One More House is about. It's almost a workbook sized book, and it's 200 pages. And we just get into some of these fallacies of why real estate is a bad thing. And it's really designed for my kids, and I hope for your loved ones. I mean, most of you are probably, you're sold. Real estate's a great thing, and you're going to these IPG meetings and you learn new stuff and you're out there taking action. But what about, some people that their spouse may not be into buying a property, or their kids say, I can't afford it. Like, these can all be overcome. And that's what we put into this book. And, my career started when I got out of university. I went to Calgary and I had a job with Chevron. I was a geophysicist, good income, had a big black dog, and the market was booming and no one would rent me a property. They didn't want a tenant with a big black dog, even though I had a good job and I had references, university education. So what could I do? The amazing thing is that I just kind of fell into it. In Alberta, you could buy a house without qualifying. They had something called an assumable mortgage, and it was in the Depression era, when they came up with this law that said, if you've got a mortgage and you sell your house, the person that buys the house can take over the mortgage without qualification. Like, the bank cannot say no to them. So here's Ralph and his black dog, Satchmo. And all we had to do is find a house where there was a mortgage that I could take over. And I phoned my parents and I said, hey, can I borrow a little bit of money because I can't find a house to rent? I need a place to live. The dog needs a place to live. They said, okay. And I got into my first house. And it's interesting that there was a profound event for my parents as well. And that the house on the screen here is the house that they moved into when they first got married. And I have two older brothers. And when I came along, number 3, I had my crib was in the closet upstairs because it was a 2-bedroom house, 2-story. And so fortunately, they moved to a bigger house. And the one decision they made was that they kept this house. So they kept One More House. And over 20 years, it increased in value massively. And it turned out that my father, when he retired, a couple of years after he retired, the business that was paying his pension went bankrupt. So he all of a sudden had no pension through no fault of his own. And this little house here just made all the difference in their financial well-being for their retirement years for 20 to 30 years. And it was turned out to be an incredible investment. It had a profound effect on me. Like, I just could not see how real estate was not a good investment. Like, I just had an appetite for it. So when I got to Calgary, I bought a house. And then 6 months later, I flipped it and bought a bigger house. And then the market died. And so I had to walk away from that house. That's another thing in Alberta is you could just give the keys back and walk away. And then instead of just, moping around, I said, this is the time to buy. So it was the bottom of the market. So I bought another house, and it, like, the second house went down 30,000 in about a year. The other one went up 30,000 in about 2 to 3 years. And I was like, wow, I've got my PhD in real estate cycles. And I sold that house and moved to Vancouver. And the rest, so they say, is history. And I met very nice people. So here's Kelly holding up the book, One More House. We went for lunch the other day and I explained to her my passion. And she said, well, come talk to the IPG group. So Cam and Kelly, I'm very thankful for you having me here to talk. And, I am motivated by financial freedom. And I've always just wanted to not have to answer to anybody, having the ability to do what I want with my time when I want. And this is me and my spouse of 40 years plus and our 3 kids in Maui. And that's what I like doing these days, is just going and relaxing and having fun. And I tell you, if you buy real estate and you get it paid off free and clear and you have cash flow, it's a great way to get that kind of freedom. And so let's talk about what's holding you back, or what's holding your kids back, or your friends back, or your clients back. If you're a realtor or you're a mortgage broker, you want your clients to buy more property. So give them this book and say, go get one more house, and then just sit back and, it's automatic pilot retirement. If you buy the right kind of property, you just let the tenant pay off the mortgage. And over 20, 25 years, you're going to have a free and clear property. And the thing is, it's out of our comfort zone, or it's out of their comfort zone. And that's why they're not doing it. And so what we have to do as their parents or their good friends or their realtor or their mortgage broker is say, hey, let's just nudge you a little bit out of your comfort zone, or let's educate you. And this is where the magic is going to happen. So if you're interested, our website is onemorehouse.ca. I'll talk about this a little bit later, but this is what the book looks like. Very simple, just one more house. And this is my slide that I've been putting up on speeches for years and years and years. And it just shows the basic concept of real estate. And that is that you have 2 ways that you're going to win. One is you've got capital appreciation, but the other is the mortgage reduction. So some stranger, some tenant will pay off your mortgage, and at the end of 25 years, you will have a free and clear house, even if it doesn't go up a nickel. So, you look at the numbers on the left-hand side, whether it's 75,000 or 750,000, you see the kind of growth that you get. And so it's just the magic of real estate. And I've been sold on it for a long, long time. So the first thing we talk about in One More House is the vision, just having this clarity and confidence. And I just want you to sort of think about this vision. Like, imagine this: you retired yesterday and your house is completely paid off, and you own one more house, a rental property also completely paid off. No mortgage payments, no rent to pay, just ownership. And that rental property brings in $2,100 a month. After taxes, insurance, maintenance, maybe $1,600 lands in your pocket. That's nearly $20,000 per year. And it's predictable, it's passive, and powerful. One more house changes everything. Now let's talk about why. Most people think rising real estate prices are about greed, and they're not. They're about the weakening Canadian dollar. Think of every dollar you earn as a battery, and every year that battery loses a little charge. In the early 1900s, you could buy land near Edmonton for a few $1,000s. The land didn't get bigger, the house didn't get better, the battery got weaker. Since 1915, the Canadian dollar has lost roughly 96% of its purchasing power. That means every new dollar you earn today arrives partially drained. And so what happens? You need more and more of those weaker batteries to buy the same house. Real estate prices don't just rise, they rise inevitably because the currency weakens. And here's the key. You can either hold the weakening dollars or you can own assets priced in those dollars. Now think about renting. If you rent for 40 years at $2,000 per month, that's nearly $1 million gone. Just gone. Yes, you had a roof over your head, but you built zero equity. And rents don't go down over time, they go up because your landlord understands the battery problem. Meanwhile, a homeowner's mortgage eventually disappears, like that slide I just showed you. And if you own a rental property, your tenants pay down your mortgage over 25 years. Strangers retire your debt. At the end of it, you own a real estate RSP, not a retirement plan you pay off yourself, but one your tenants helped build. And, I think offering a rental property to tenants is a service. Like there's some people that actually benefit from having a place to rent. So it's not a horrible thing to be a landlord. I hate this sort of stereotype of the horrible landlord that's just money, money, money. Like there is a bona fide necessity for rents because there's some people that just will never buy and they need a place. And so we as investors are the good guys. We're not the bad guys. Some people say owning two houses sounds twice as hard. It's not. Your principal residence is your responsibility, but a rental property is a different animal. You can deduct expenses, you can deduct interest, you can leverage equity, you can refinance without triggering tax unless you sell. And here's the beauty. You don't need 10 houses. You don't need to be a developer. You don't need to flip properties. You just need one more house. Now let's bring this back to retirement. Imagine you stop working tomorrow. Would you rather be paying rising rents on a fixed income or live mortgage-free with rental income supplementing your pension? Because once your house is paid off, you never make a housing payment again, ever. And that is freedom that I was talking about earlier. Inflation becomes less scary when you own assets that rise with it. Inflation hurts renters, it helps owners. Here's the truth. Standing still with cash is losing. Waiting is expensive. Idle money is a battery draining on a shelf. Owning real estate is participation. It's using leverage. It's letting inflation work for you instead of against you. So the vision is simple. Mortgage-free home, one mortgage-free rental, rental income covering life's rising costs, options in retirement. Sell it, refinance it, downsize, or what your kids want you to do, pass it on. And if you don't, what's the plan? Hope rent doesn't rise, hope groceries stabilize, work until your knees give out. The future doesn't have to be frightening, but it will be unless you claim it. And in my opinion, one more house is how to do that. Now that's just the vision. Now we got to get into the nitty gritty. So the nitty gritty is why, where, what, when, and how. And these are things that we cover in the book, and I can't get into them now because I've only got 45 minutes to an hour to talk. So I want to spare you of this. But anyways, this is sort of the second module of One More House, is the nitty gritty of actually how to do it. And, to some extent, actually to a great extent, deals are everywhere. So the nitty gritty is actually pretty easy. You just figure out where to buy. And so you want some place where there's job growth, there's lack of supply. And, this is the Vancouver market. Prices below replacement cost. We're getting there. It's getting to the point where developers can't afford to build. So, if they stop building, we're buying below replacement costs, and then it's going to come back and in a roaring different direction when there's less and less inventory. Future growth, infrastructure, projects being built, a large population is always good, because if there's a large population and you have a vacancy, then all you have to do is compete against the person across the street with another property, and you give your tenants a microwave when they move in, or half a month's rent or something. But It's competitive such that all you have to do is be the better option, and you will have full properties more than likely. And strategic advantages are important. So you don't necessarily have to buy in Vancouver. You could buy in Kelowna or in Powell River or someplace where you may have friends or a good property manager, or some kind of strategic advantage that puts you above other people going to those areas. So remember that deals are everywhere, and the types of deals too. So you can look at condos, you can look at single family houses. Hang on a sec. There we go. There. Multifamily duplexes, triplexes, large multifamily, like was my specialty. Raw land and subdivisions, which Rick has been doing. He's been putting together assemblies of land for subdivisions and apartment buildings. Recreation properties, like buy a ski condo and do Airbnb, something like that. That's still one more house, and that's going to appreciate the same as any other house. And why not enjoy it? Buy one by the beach if you have to, or if you want to. I shouldn't say if you have to. And then there are other options, rent to own lease options. Some people buy tax liens and deeds. I've never done it, but there's some people that make a lot of money just buying tax liens. Self-storage properties have great cash flow. Mobile home parks generally have great cash flow, but you have the land, and the land is the big engine of appreciation. So those can be good investments. Commercial, syndications, pre-sales, which were very popular, and they're very out of favor now. But man, you can get some good deals now because people, their pre-sales are closing and they can't qualify for a mortgage, and they're just kissing their down payments goodbye. So you can go in there and buy a condo for 20% off what it was selling for maybe 3 to 4 years ago. So that's a market that really interests me if you get a quality builder and a quality location. And then there's Airbnb hotels, VRBO, and high cash flow opportunities like that. So anyways, there's tons of opportunities of things to look at. And again, in this book, we talk about, the how to get it done, nitty gritty. The other thing to keep in mind, and I mentioned this briefly when I was talking about my experience in Calgary, I experienced real estate cycles. And the interesting thing about Canada is that not all real estate markets go through the same cycle at the same time. So Vancouver could be down, but Calgary could be up, or the Maritimes could be up, or someplace. And then we get back to that strategic advantage. So if you have a relative that lives in Halifax, maybe there's some screaming good deals there, and you joint venture with them, and you put up the money and they put up the elbow grease and the boots on the ground. But keep in mind that you want to buy when the cycle is dipping, because when it's dipping, it's like Warren Buffett said, buy when people are crying and sell when people are yelling. So people are crying when it's dipping and they're yelling when it's up at the peak. So if you're in my kind of mindset of the one more house, you're buying it and you're going through these peaks and you don't care. You can sleep at night. You've got a fixed mortgage. You've bought a long-term investment and you're not thinking about selling it. So it doesn't matter whether it goes up and down. Same as buying a share of Google stock. If you're going to hold it for 5 years, it's going to go up, based on the past 5 years, probably 300%. So who cares whether it goes up in a day 10% one way or 10% the other? I love that about real estate, is I don't have to look at what it's worth every single day. Like I look at the stock market, like, oh, it went up, oh, it went down, oh, it's, it just gives you a heart attack every time you look at it. So who wants to look at it? But keep in mind that Vancouver right now, we're in a trough. So this is a buying opportunity. And don't get scared by all the bad news about, what Cam was saying about the taxes and what the government's doing, because the government's not going to last forever if they have these kind of policies, because people are going to say, I'm sick of being fleeced. Like, I've got to live and you're taking too much money out of my pocket. Why don't you try cutting spending instead of cutting my income? That is a good thing to think about. Sorry about that. I can't resist. So the next thing after we talk about just the vision of one more house and sort of the, nitty gritty stuff, is how do you get your fears to flip, or how do you get your spouse's fears to flip, or your children's fears to flip? And the important thing is you just have to look at history and just look at the fundamentals and the fact, as I mentioned about this battery, that we're just running out of steam and the dollar is losing value. Real estate is one of the safest things to invest in over the years. And if you look at this chart and going back to the 1980s or late 1970s, is that it does have some jitters as it goes up, and it does have some flat periods, but over time it goes up because it's just the value of money. And your rents generally keep pace with what a bag of groceries costs, right? So as those go up, the rents will be going up as well. So it protects you for retirement. And how do you buy in 2026? Well, it's really the very simple way that we've always been buying. It's 3 steps, and you have to find a deal. You have to recognize what's a good deal. So that's important. We go through that in our book. You have to tie it up, and that means writing a contract, putting in favorable terms. They say that there are 2 things in creating a deal. One is the price, and the other is the terms. So if you have a seller that is really, stuck on a price, you might be able to get incredible terms. Like you might get them to carry a mortgage, or you might get them to give you a second mortgage. You might get them to throw in, all sorts of goodies that are in the house that, generally people don't leave, but if you ask for them, they might. So learn all these tricks and tie up a great deal. This is the opportunity right now to tie up a great deal. As long as you've got the elbow grease and the inclination to go out there and make a lot of lowball offers, the deals will come. And this is the time to be out there looking for them. And of course, the third one is close the deal. And my kids would say, yeah, Dad, I'd love to buy one more house, but I don't have the deposit. And my theory is, if you find the deal, if you can recognize a really good deal, the money will come to you. And I am a prime example of that. Back during COVID, I had one of my students call me up and say, I got this deal on Pender Island, and it's waterfront. It's under $1 million. It's commercially zoned, and it's got 10 beds. So it was just a cash flow machine on the waterfront. And so I hopped in the car with my wife and we went and looked at it. It was when you couldn't travel to the Gulf Islands without it being for a business purpose. So fortunately, it was for a business purpose, but it was kind of spooky. You're on the ferry and everybody's like separated, and, no tourists are allowed to go. But we went over, we looked at it, we decided it's a great property, and we bought it. And the deal was that my partner, who found it and did the contract, she does all the management, and I did the financing. So she found a deal that was a really good deal, and the money found her. All she had to do is know who to call. And she called the right person when she called me. So close the deal. Don't necessarily think you can't close the deal. If it's a good deal, and if you can't figure out what a good deal is, well, talk to Kelly and Cam and say, hey, what would you be looking for? What if I found this? And just be a bird dog. If you don't have the cash, go out and be a bird dog and find deals. And 50% of something is better than 100% of nothing. So all you have to do is buy 2, and you have 50% of them. You didn't put in any of your own money, but that's like owning a house, right? If you have 2 half houses. So how to make 2026 your best year yet? If you don't have that one more house, start looking for it. You don't necessarily have to buy it this year, but why not? Why not buy it in a slow year? I think the market's going to pick up sooner than other people expect. I think Trump's new guy for the Federal Reserve, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, his nominee, is going to lower rates, because that's why Trump said, I'll nominate you. Like, they have an agreement. So Trump wants to set their economy on growth mode, and that's going to affect the whole world, I think. Like, we're going to just be in a growth mode. So let's embrace it, as long as he doesn't, well, I'll stop that subject without any comments. So anyway, back to One More House, the book. We've come up with this idea of a book club where we talk about the book in 4 modules. And I mentioned them tonight just briefly. The first one, the vision, was not so brief. I'm sorry I bored you for 5 minutes while I talked about the vision of One More House. But I did talk briefly about the nitty-gritty that needs to be gone into in more detail. The idea of flipping your fears. And of course, Rick, with his other book, What's Stopping You, got some great material on flip your fears, paying it forward. So helping people, they say that if you teach a man to fish, you feed him for a day. Or sorry, if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. And so paying it forward is getting people exposed to the idea of real estate and that it's not as scary as people make it out to be. And of course, taking action. So the idea would be that, 10 or so people get on a Zoom call and you read, the book is about 212 pages. So say you read 50 pages and then every week or 2 weeks, you have a module and we discuss it on either a Zoom or Microsoft Teams or some kind of venue for communicating, or you could meet at a coffee shop, whatever. But the idea is that you talk about this with other people and it gives you strength in numbers and gives you some backbone. You hear about their stories and you take positive impact from that. I remember when IPG, we used to meet in person and there was a lot of energy in the real estate action group. We'd meet in person and people say, wow, you bought something, and you just kind of take that and say, well, I better go buy something because I'm kind of a slacker here. Everybody else around me is buying something, or they're making money, or they're doing deals. So taking action is the most important thing. And I think by getting together in a group and discussing the book may be a way to get people pushed over the edge and actually taking action in a time when I think is a real good time to be taking some action. So here's the website. I mentioned it before, onemorehouse.ca. So you can go to the website, you can order a book, and 1 to 3 books, the price is $74. I don't have the shipping costs here, but if you go to the website, it tells you the shipping costs. I just know the magic number is 10 books is free shipping. And for the investor performance group, I'm going to give a special deal. If you go to the site, the book is $74. It's printed in Canada, and it's a big book, and it's expensive to print and ship and pay the taxes. But if we get 10 books, we'll do free shipping, and also we'll reduce the price to $60. So if you talk to Kelly or Cam and you say, I'm interested in this book club idea, or I'm just interested in getting a book, we'll ship 10 books to their office, and you can just go pick it up from them at the office. Try and make it as simple as possible. So I'm just going to close with some words of wisdom, and that is to take action. And I love this slide. If you don't own a home, buy one. And if you own a home, buy another one. And if you own 2 homes, buy a third. And lend your relatives the money to buy a home. Like, I just think One More House is just, the greatest gift you can give to someone. And if you give them the tools, they'll figure it out. And finally, be decisive. So right or wrong, make a decision. The road of life is paved with flat squirrels who couldn't make a decision. And thanks very much, Cam and Kelly. That's it.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Normally we'd have a crowd, we'd be clapping, so I'll do it for you here.
I hope I was on time. It looks like I'm reasonably okay.
You have done great. Okay, so we did have a couple questions that came in. Client of mine, Derek, had said, this is probably a different strategy idea than the book, but I thought we wanted to add value, then refi and keep the ball rolling instead of paying it off and being free and clear. but and put that money into the next one, et cetera, and scale that way. So maybe you can give some advice on
Yeah.
that versus the concept of the book.
Well, what was his name? Derek?
Derek, yep.
Yeah, Derek. You and I are of the same blood because that's what I did. Like, you can do the accelerated version or you can do the easy laid back version. So the book is talking about, you can either do it the laid back way or you can do it the accelerator way. And the accelerator way sometimes have bumps in the road with interest rates and markets, and it by far you'll get a lot richer doing it the accelerator route. So we just did this book because we thought, there's so many people out there that are renting that just don't understand that they could buy, or, you know, that live in their house and they don't understand what a huge thing it would be to just buy one more house. Like, don't just have the house you live in. That's a no-brainer because you'd be paying rent anyway. And so you're paying a mortgage. Like, living in your personal residence, and plus the appreciation is tax-free. That's a no-brainer. But getting them over that hump to just buy one more house, and then once they do that, they'll start doing your method. That wasn't really so hard. Maybe I'll buy a second house or a third house. So yeah, I totally get it. That it's better the accelerated version if you're willing to put the work and the elbow grease into it.
All right,
That
we've got
answer the question.
Oh, for sure. I hope so. Derek, let me know if you have any follow up questions. Feel free to throw it in the chat. We have someone in here who said you had great advice. I don't know if this will be in your wheelhouse, but I'll throw it at you and you see how you want to handle it. They said, "How do you handle probate or capital gains upon death?" He says, I think my problem is my father had about 8 million in real estate. When he passes, we are going to pay about 2 million in capital gains. Is there anything that you would recommend other than life insurance?"
Well, one of the best ways is life insurance. But the trouble is you have to buy it when you're young and it's cheap, for young people. And one of the best things, which I ended up doing on the advice of my accountant, is you do a joint to die. So, you and your spouse have to both die. And the life insurance companies bet that, they'll probably throw in the towel on the policy or something. So that's kind of a cool way to do it. The only other way would be to put the kids on title. That's the way you can gift it before you die. Maybe slightly less than 50%, but still that makes a big difference if you can somehow avoid having to sell the properties. Like, there's a deemed disposition, so your father or whoever's leaving you this property, their portion of the property is deemed to have been sold, and then there's a tax obligation on that amount. But if you own 50% or 49%, then there's only a tax obligation on half the property. Maybe there's other ways you can do it, like put it in a trust, and then there would be no tax. Put it in a corporation and have the shares distributed, then you can mitigate the amount of tax. So I would talk to an accountant, but there are some creative ways to try and avoid this. And it's not tax avoidance. It's just tax planning. You're following the rules. You're doing nothing illegal, but there are ways that you can mitigate the pain.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, between your accountant or a really good financial planner who understands real estate, they'll both be able to work together to help structure you in a way to mitigate some of the tax burden that you might have. And yeah, I mean, yeah, you're absolutely welcome. So thanks, Cameron, for asking my question. Great tip. Thanks for the suggestions. Yeah, you're absolutely welcome, Crypto Unleashed. That's exactly why we do these. So you can ask these questions and get some advice or at least direction in where you need to go. Does anyone else have any questions for Ralph while he is here? And again, while he's talking about the concept of just one more house, at the end of the day, Ralph is a well of knowledge. He's been doing this for a long time now, and he's done several different strategies. So if you do have other questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. We had someone else say thank you, Ralph, and then he said, Derek, jumping back in. I heard him say he has a student. Is there a course or is there a way to be a student? He's actively trying to learn multifamily investing. Ralph, can he be a student?
Well, I think, what I was willing to do is if you can, get 10 people to do one of these book clubs, that I will participate in the calls, and it'll be wide open. We can talk about, whatever we want to talk about, but, in terms of a house or an apartment building or whatever it is. But I'm not at the point where I'm teaching people how to do multifamily. Um, but I'm trying to think, the best way to do it is, um, uh, who is it? Pierre Paul Turgeon has a course on multifamily investing. That's one
Yeah,
route to
he
go.
he had one, yeah.
Yeah. So, maybe go find an actual course on multifamily investing. The principles are pretty simple. It's all about uh, your NOI, net operating income, and how you can reduce expenses and increase the um, income, so that your net income, which determines the value of the property, increases. And so that can be filling vacancies. It can be, gussing up kitchens and bathrooms so people will pay more rent, or refinishing the floors, or sometimes just a coat of paint. Or sometimes, what I look at is I see the landlord is just asleep at the wheel, I call it. He doesn't see, the value of making these slight changes, and what a huge uh, opportunity is to increase the value of the building.
Yeah, absolutely. And the big thing with the multifamily as well is that it's as just to clarify a little bit what Ralph said for those who maybe don't know, NOI stands for net operating income. So you're doing anything you can to impact what the income is at the bottom line for this building, whether it's increasing revenue or decreasing expenses, and that directly ties to the value of the building in which you're creating, right? So there's a whole formula. We could go on a long tangent with multifamily investing. It is a whole slew on its
Maybe,
own, but
maybe my
absolutely.
next book will be one more apartment building.
One more apartment. Yeah. The follow-up to one more house. Excellent. Okay, let's see here. We've got a couple more questions. So, Crypto Unleashed said, "How do you find decent tenants in a tipsy, curvy market like this?" He's finding it difficult to find good tenants, and rents have come down. Oh, we've got a freeze on Ralph. Or is it me that's frozen? Feel free to throw it in the chat. Am I still active or is Ralph still active? If you can hear me, say yes. Or Kelly, I see you on the side. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? I think we may have lost Ralph. You are active, Cam. Okay, thanks, Derek. I can hear you. Okay, thank you. Seems like we've lost Ralph. I was gonna. Oh, yeah, he dropped. Unfortunately, we've just lost Ralph. If he jumps back on, I'll bring him up to ask a couple more questions. But if not, we're gonna carry on then. So Crypto Unleashed. I'll try to do what I can to answer your question there. Finding it hard to find good tenants. At the end of the day, it is a trickier market right now for finding tenants. The couple things that you need to do is focus on one, are you competitive on your rents? And yes, rents have come down. And the struggle, that's what's happening with a lot of investors right now, is that they're focusing too much on still trying to get high rents, and obviously they're trying to avoid negative cash flow. However, vacancy kills your profit more than a negative cash flow. So you might have to drop your rents in order to increase the buyer or the tenant pool, I should say, of tenants that you're able to choose from. Other things you want to do is make sure that your property is in good shape. Tenants have a lot of choice out there, and it's a price war and a beauty contest. So either you have to have your property looking pristine and offering a decent value in terms of rent, or you might need to put a little bit of work in there to spruce it up in order to get that rent that you're looking. So I hope that does help. Yeah, Ralph throwing Ralph. Yeah, he just dropped off completely. He's not in our back end here. Also, yeah, Ralph's last name for anyone who needs to know is Ralph Case. And again, this is the book here. So One More House by Ralph Case. Derek, I know you said you're interested in the book club idea. What I would suggest, if you are interested in starting a book club or doing a book club, try to find about 10 people or so that you would also be interested in doing this, and lead the charge. If you can lead the charge, then that is definitely how you can get one of those started, and then you can get access to Ralph. I've got Kelly just helping me out on the side, being a little bit of a director in the background, giving something. Um, yeah, Ralph's texting me. You guys can all still hear me, right? Kelly, you can give me a thumbs up. I'm good. I can see you in the bottom. Yeah, okay. Yeah. I'm just texting Ralph here, guys. We lost you. So here's what I would suggest, guys. If you guys are interested in doing the book club, as Ralph had mentioned, send me an email, Cameron at Kelly Fry Team. Also, I'm going to drop it in the chat. My email, Cameron at kellyfryteam.com. And then I'll put it on the thing here. So this is my email, guys. If you guys are interested in getting it together with the book club, it looks like we've got several people who would be interested. If you all email me, I can put a list together, and if we can get up to 10 people, we can send that over to Ralph. Order those books for you guys, and you guys can put the book club together. Can hear you loud and clear. Okay, perfect. I'm glad that I'm still on. So, while we do as much as we can with technology, sometimes technology does fail us. I'm just glad that we got Ralph all the way to the end before we lost him. So that's too bad that he dropped off there. But again, if you guys want, his name's Ralph Case. Go check him out. He's on social media everywhere. And again, if you guys are interested in getting a copy of his book, it's onemorehouse.ca, or you can scan the QR code here if you just want to buy a one-off book. If you're not necessarily interested in the book club idea, if you do want to start your own, again, if you order 10, he'll throw in some deals to get it cheaper and throw in the shipping and handling for free as well. All right, we're gonna move on and get you guys wrapped up for the night, and we're gonna move into some hot deals. So, talking about one more house, just one more house. If that's your goal, is just one more house. We've got a couple on the market that should scratch that itch for you guys. First and foremost, we've got this property out here in Mission, British Columbia. It is currently listed at $849,900. It's a 4-bedroom, 2-bath with 2 suites, 3 up and 1 down. We estimate the rent right now in today's market around $2,800 for the upper and $1,400 down. It's on a decent sized square foot lot, 7,600, built in 1983, and it's been fairly well updated. Honestly, the pictures make it look really fantastic. And why we like this one is because the rent to price ratio makes a lot of sense. Now, we did run our numbers based on the fact of negotiating. We're focusing on where does this property make the most amount of sense. And if you are an investor, this is what you should be doing, is looking at these properties, running your numbers, and figuring out what's the bottom or the top price that you guys would be willing to pay. You can probably pay a little bit more and still do very well than we've analyzed it, but we feel with the way the market's moving, you might be able to get this for in and around that $800,000 price. So that's where we ran our numbers. Based on that, sorry guys, we've got my computer locked up. Tell everyone thank you and sign up for the book club. $60 a book, max 10 in the class. Either bulk order through you or buy on your own, onemorebook.ca. I'm just gonna say thank you again to Ralph and you. We are several people who are interested. So again, send me an email and we'll get that set up. Appreciate all you presented tonight. There we go. Okay. So again, take a look at this. You got property tax insurance. We factored in some vacancy and repair based on a mortgage at 4.2%, which is a little bit higher than we are seeing some people getting. Again, we want to be conservative when we do this. It's running about $448 a month if you do self-manages. So this is a decently cash flowing deal. This is actually a pretty strong deal out there. We focused on only 20% down. So about a year ago, if you wanted to make something cash flow, you had to put larger amounts down, 25 to 30% down. Now we are seeing that we're back into that, putting the minimum amount down and still cash flowing out there on the market. This is a beautiful place. Honestly, it's a fantastic rental. I think anyone who rents here would be very, very happy with this. So if you guys want more information, let me know. And the ROI on this sits at about cash on cash 0.9%, return on equity 6.3. So we're just under a 20% return on investment with this property here. Now, this is for someone who's looking for a little bit more of an affordable option to get into the market. Maybe you don't have the money to buy a detached home. This is a townhouse that is out in Chilliwack. And honestly, it's a beautiful little townhouse. They've had some updates throughout. It's not fully updated, but it is very clean, very easy to rent. 3 bedroom, 2 bath. The rent we estimate is around $2,300 a month. We were looking and we could find it as high as even 24, but we wanted to be very conservative with this one. What we like about this one is that the overall fees and the taxes are quite cheap on this property compared to what's going on out there in the market. Yet it looks like it's a very well run building. We estimated picking it up for around $400,000. It's currently listed at 418. It's a little bit of negotiation off there. Total investment into this is just under $90,000 and it'll generate around $137 a month. Again, if you get a better interest rate, you negotiate a slightly better price, maybe you get a better rent, that will fluctuate your numbers and make more sense as well. Total return on investment is around 21.48% annualized on this little townhouse out in Chilliwack. So there you go. Those are two different options at two different pricing brackets. If you guys want to go out and find one more house, of course, you guys are watching this and you want to connect with either Kelly or myself, shoot us an email. It's Cameron at Kelly Fry Team or Kelly at Kelly Fry Team, depending who you've been talking to. And let's start getting you guys back out into the market. This is the investment focused market that we have been waiting for so long. The deals are out there. And if you can buy smart and focus on the fundamentals of buying for cash flow and holding long term, you guys will absolutely do well going forward in the long term. And Derek, to your strategy as well, absolutely nothing wrong with going and finding a property that needs some work, putting that work in there to generate a higher rent, sitting on that property for a while it generates some equity and eventually refinancing, pulling that money out and doing it again. So there's lots of strategies that still do work in today's market. More the short-term stuff that you got to be very leery and really run your numbers very tight. All right, guys, that's it for tonight. We've got some QR codes because, of course, we love to throw a lot of things for you guys to scan. So grab your phones. And if you're watching on your phone, take a screenshot of all these. Again, you can follow us on our social media channels. The Kelly Fry Team is literally everywhere. And I hope you guys have had fun watching Kelly do some really funny, creative reels and TikToks out there. So, our marketing team is really having some fun making her do some of what others would call the cringy materials. But of course, we all like just have some fun. You can also subscribe if you haven't already done so. Hit that red subscribe button. 700 subscribers. I had a goal to hit that by 11, like by October. We're literally like 4 subscribers away from my goal of 1100, and I'm super excited about that. So thank you to all of you guys in the community here who've been following the Investors Performance Group, following this channel. I do appreciate you. And of course, check out the Manning Up on Real Estate podcast. You can listen here on Spotify, Apple, everywhere. There's also the YouTube channel itself. We're working on getting that one to 100 subscribers. So we are about 6 away from 100 subscribers there. So make sure you guys take a photo, scan that. Check out that last podcast episode as well. I really break down how essentially the BC government has been cannibalizing their own highest revenue source in order to focus on optics versus actually fixing the deficits that we're in. That's the word I was looking for earlier, is deficits. So guys, go and check that one out. Like I said, it's an easy listen. It's about 5 minutes long. That episode is really quick, getting to the point, get it done. So check that one out. Manning Up on Real Estate, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, everywhere. And if you're not already a member of our Facebook page, go and check out Investors Performance Group on Facebook. This is where you guys can post questions, post any deals you're working on if you're looking to raise capital. And of course, just start creating that community feel here in and around the Lower Mainland, so you guys have that support group you need. And if you guys want to start the book club, this is a great way that you can post in there as well, looking for people who want to join you as well. Also, we talked about it earlier, but I was on Debbie's podcast, Debbie Bell, for Let's Talk Real Estate Investing. And this is not necessarily an investor topic, but it's the topic of how you raise capital using social credit. Social credit being social media. In fact, more like interest media in today's day and age. If you guys want to start raising capital and you want to be more aggressive and scale faster, you can't necessarily do it all on your own unless you have those deep pockets. You're going to have to learn to raise capital. The old school method of raising capital is going to all the different investment clubs that you can, meet as many people, talk to your friends, your family, doctors, whatever, and trying to raise the capital. Now, with social media, you can start to show your thought leadership out there at a much higher level. Start putting yourself on camera, start creating content, and people will come to you wanting to invest if you add value. And to help you guys out with that, as I said, we've got the complete investor content starter pack. This packet here, I'm giving away for free. It's valued at about $200. Okay. We've got 30 pages in there from how to get started, how to come up with ideas, how to edit on 2 different platforms, CapCut and Descript with AI editing. We also have AI prompts that will help you generate ideas, the 100 investor focused hooks that you can use to generate content. This is packed full. And also with it will come a 15-minute social media audit where we will help get your social media set up and ready to start converting leads and start converting more capital for yourself. So scan that QR code, sign up. Again, it's free. It's valued at over $200. And I think it's going to be a valuable resource for anyone who wants to raise capital online. And then lastly, if you guys have made it all the way watching here, I know we still got some people tuning in. We would like to invite you guys to our client spring bowling. This is open to IPG members such as yourselves. We're going to be over on March 1st at Revs Bowling from 2 to 5 p.m. You must RSVP for it. So make sure you scan that RSVP. Of course, kids are absolutely welcome. We're going to have a blast. We've got lots of prizes. We've got, like everything from top bowler to some special prizes we're not going to announce. We're going to be giving also away a pair of AirPods for anyone who wants to win a new pair of AirPods. Make sure you come out, have some fun. There's going to be snacks. There's going to be good times. There's going to be good vibes. And of course, there's those bragging rights when you got that top score. I was out just bowling the other night and practicing so I can make sure I can be competitive because I know some of you guys are really good out there. So make sure you can scan that, come and check it out. Of course, don't forget, get a copy of Ralph's new book. I know we posted it before, onemorehouse.ca. And next month's meeting is going to be live streaming here on the YouTube channel. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Join our Facebook community so you know when it's happening, March 19th, here on my YouTube channel. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I see everyone. Thanks for hosting. Thanks for hosting, Cameron. You're welcome. Derek, you're welcome. Crypto Unleashed, thank you for joining. Catherine, always great to have you join us. Ruben, thank you so much. I downloaded your guides. Very good. I appreciate that. That is a great shout out. I appreciate that so much. Have a great night, Cam and Kelly. You're absolutely welcome. Great session tonight. You're so welcome, guys. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you guys on the 19th or at the bowling.